Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Duchess of Unicorn, the YouTube channel. So, today I would like to just go over some random photos that I just kind of like and talk a little bit about what's going on with the royals that we are seeing in America, which is, mainly on force fed through like entertainment magazines and online venues as such. Also, I'd like to talk a little bit, and I don't want to be racial because anytime you refer to someone's nationality or their ethnicity, it becomes a racial issue for a lot of people who are hypersensitive. I am not hypersensitive. I'm biracial. I'm speaking in that position of being biracial, speaking on another biracial person. My thoughts and my views are my own, and this is a great place to insert a disclaimer that these are my thoughts. I'm just giving them freely, sharing them with whoever will listen. They are not necessarily true for the masses of people out there. I have no authority over anyone else. I'm just speaking my mind. For the full disclaimer, see the description box. And these photos are not my own. They're just gathered on public domains around the internet. And you may hear my heater going on. It's chilly. It's winter, people. So I hope you don't mind. But let's go ahead into my first photo. I gathered a few. So I like this photo a lot of the Duchess of Sussex. Now, some people might say, well, wait a minute. Is this YouTube channel pro Meghan Markle or against the Meghan Markle establishment? The royal family is no, no, and no. What I want to do here, my intention is to just share my thoughts, good, bad, or indifferent, on what I interpret as going on in the royal family. So right now I'm looking at this photo of Meghan Markle. It's from the Instagram, as you can see, and I believe it's from Meghan Update, and who knows where she got it. I'm sure a public domain. And it struck me as interesting because she exactly looks like she's a black woman to me. It's interesting, and why I'm saying that, just wait, don't freak out, because I know there's people who love this person and there's people who don't. And the people who love this person, sometimes I speculate that they love her because they see her as an acceptable, approachable black woman, or not as a black woman at all, but as biracial, which they chose to check off the side that she's white, Caucasian. So I'm biracial, and and this can get into a rabbit hole, but without getting into a rabbit hole, I want to talk about simply that to me, as a biracial woman in America, she looks to me black. I can see her features, I guess people call it African American. I'm not a fan of that term, but I can see her ethnic side strongly revealed. And I find it interesting, and why I find it interesting is because really a lot of wheels are spinning trying to portray Miss Markle as somebody who really looks more European. Now, there's nothing wrong with looking European, but if you're half of, well, we're all racially mixed, but if Meghan wants to speak as she's biracial, so she's just pulling out two ethnicities. She didn't show an Ancestry.com printout or a review of Amazon.com, Ancestry.com, and showing that she's mixing, mixes of all sorts of things. Chances are she is. You're not ever really just two things, but for the lack of better words and deep, deep diving, we're looking at just her features. And this particular picture struck me as very pushing her ethnicity forward. And I can see it very clearly. And some people choose not to, but I can see it very clearly. And I like it. I think it's a cool photo because I'm so tired of seeing the Europeanized with a lot of highlighter and light foundations and a lot of dusting and all that stuff. So I'm kind of tired of that. I'm trying to see if my okay. So yeah. So right now I'm looking at the family tree, which now Meghan has entered. I don't really know how long she's going to stay there. I don't have a huge amount of faith that I project that, my personal opinion, that she'll be there till the end of time. I just don't feel it. She's from America, and and she's in Hollywood. She's a California girl, and yeah, we all have the romantic notions, but I feel like it's a trend of divorce anyway in society, and especially underline American society. And the more famous and celebrity you are, it seems like the more you flip and flop. And of course, only time tells of so-called true love. But I feel like if you're coming out of celebrity or Hollywood, I feel kind of that it's a thing to just say, well, I don't get what I want, or I'm not getting, what I need, and you can't help me with that, and so goodbye. And not only that, just with celebrities in general, but Meghan Markle seems to have a history behind her of, it's not publicized hundreds of guys, but it seems like that she kind of has to move on a little bit, and she kind of moves around very strategically in terms of the type of man that she sees. And I've done I touched upon it a little bit, the type of person that we see Miss Markle, Mrs. Windsor doing. And even when we say Mrs. Windsor or the Windsors, we don't really think of Meghan. It's kind of like, well, we think of her because we're like, what? What just happened? It's like seeing someone come through see a time traveler coming through, a wormhole, It's like, what? Did I really just see that? So we just think of her still as Meghan Markle, the actress, the B actress, on, a sub channel in the United States that, some people watched. I had never heard of her prior to that. And I've done a few other videos. I've only started doing videos because I find the whole theatrics of this really funny and also interesting. Now, I don't not like Miss Markle. I just find things that are happening, just like anybody else does, very suspect, if you will. And I like some things that she does, but I'm here to just give my thoughts on some things. So this is the family tree. Here she is way down here. And I think, I don't know, I think it's really, I don't really, I mean, she's not the first black woman in the royal family. And I think it's said that the royals have ties to the Egyptians as well as to Germany. And I even think Russia, but I'm not sure. I think the Russian Tsar at one time was cousins of the royal family. So if you know anything about royals, which I'm not saying I go too deep with the royals, but I've gone deep enough to see that there's unique ties with the royal family around the world. So like Denmark and other European countries, like again Russia, they have family ties. It seems like they have cousins of cousins of cousins. So that's another video for itself. But when you're someone who marries into the royal family and you happen to be biracial, and those races are one black and one, and again, they say African American. I don't care for that. Black, I don't care. That's a crayon in a box. And white is a crayon in a box. But for this video, for lack of better words, we'll try to stick with, ethnicities. And she has these two combinations, and we know that there's much more because everybody has much more in them. Hence all this hoopla over Ancestry.com and 23andMe and all these other DNA type sites. We just haven't seen Meghan Markle's history, her ancestry, broken down for us. But now she's in the royal family and she's been there for a few years. And, not a lot of people are impressed. And the people that are impressed, probably it isn't their fault. They probably don't know any better. They don't know that, it's not the first time that an ethnic woman has been in the royal family, the British royal family, and that the royal families around the world, some of them are united. I think it would be more impressive if there was, like, say, a Zimbabwean queen or princess, or a Zulu tribe princess marrying into the British royal family. So if there was a African royal family, which there are, and I may do a video on that, and the British royal family, then it would be like, hold up. Now we see two royal families coming together, and they are extremely divided and different in their ethnicities and backgrounds. And that was taking a huge leap versus, mixing bloodlines and such on and so forth, and actually coming together. But when you get an American person, which the Tea Party was the British, they were already here trying to colonize America, like they've done in so many other places. And they did a lot of killing, and war was here, civil war was here. And the British were behind some of that in history. And so do your research on that, and you'll see that we're not so sure that the British family isn't really the current owners, because they were at one time of the United States. But then again, also the I believe it was the Eastern Indians, or the Western Indians, the Eastern Indians, because it's the Western Indians, I guess, since I'm in America. But however that means, is that at one time, the Moroccans it was the Moroccans. The Moroccans owned the United States. And if you dig deep online, and if I can find it, I will surely save it and bring that up in the next video. But it's the Moroccans that actually owned the United States way back before it became a formed official government. And there was also a few black presidents, and one before it was a formed solid government. So before they took it from his presidency from him, it was a black president. So I would be more impressed if it was, say, again, an African princess marrying into a prince of the royal families, the British royal family. And there are princesses, African princesses, who marry into other tribes and other bloodlines, but also there are other ethnic women, black, if you, just for lack of better words, marrying into white aristocratic. So I just find this interesting. So I will let's see, move on. And I wanted to show, yeah, I came across this too, and I don't want to stay on it because I really, Harry, he's just going to be who he is, and that's been etched in time. But Harry boasted to Prince William, "I can do anything I want." That right there encompasses why so many people do not respect or appreciate the royals, because they're so self-important. And they are so self-important and self-indulgent that they assume we must follow along and think that. And so many people don't. And I'll say that this one thing about Meghan Markle is, by doing the kind of debauchery she's doing, is kind of evident that the royals are really no different than anybody else. They can be suckered into anything. If anybody is weak enough, or if anybody is susceptible enough, if anybody is manipulative enough, if anybody manipulates somebody enough, and they have to be open for it. And it just goes to show you that, there's a lot of talk about royals being, higher up because of long bloodlines. But let's face it, people, we're all of royal bloodlines. If you are born and you're into humanity, you're born into humanity, if you believe the Christian Bible, then you'll see that we all supposedly come from Adam and Eve. That's a lot of lineage. That's a lot of lineage. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I think this title says it all from Express online, express.co.uk. Harry boasted to Prince William, "I can do anything I want." Sounds very childish. Okay, so here's another picture of Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex. And this is taken, I believe, from Instagram, but definitely from on a public domain. I want to say it could be Tumblr. I think it might be Tumblr. It was a photo on Tumblr. But it says Meghan, the Duchess of Sussex, and it was referring to like a list of women or something who, do some. I'll have to look it up, but it was just something I thought it was kind of what the person listed. Meghan, Duchess of Sussex, and you can read that yourself. Not quite a rags to riches tale. She was privately educated, and her scapegrace father won an Emmy for lighting direction. So it's not like she was in the barrio or in the Bronx, and she was, and I love how, again, if you're any kind of race other than the status quo, for instance, you are associated with living in the ghetto, any ghetto, pick a ghetto. It doesn't matter, for your region. So I find that kind of interesting that she has to struggle with that just because she's biracial or interracial or multicultural. It doesn't really vibe well with people just assuming that because she's of a race, of course, she has to be coming from some low place. Now, on the flip side of that, it doesn't necessarily mean that she was upper echelon. For a lot of people in society, rich has its own, wealthy, rich, upper class, middle class. It all has its own notation. Like I might think of upper class different than what you think is upper class. Low class, I might have a difference in opinion, the range of what lower class means or who would fall into that. So I find that they kind of pin that on her because she's half, black, half African American, half ethnic, and I'll just use that for now. I just want to make sure I break it down so people understand where I'm going, because not everybody speaks the same lingo. Can speak the same language, but not the same lingo. And I like that she's got that Tungsian tuffy to drag the royal family into the 21st century. Now, I don't know that she's dragging anybody anywhere, because she trying to, by way of having her in and having all the dust kicked up into the royal family, is it, we're supposed to assume she's bringing them into the 21st century? I don't know. I don't know that she is. Just because they pinned Prince Harry on marrying someone biracial, and that, I mean, like I said, marry an African woman. There's beautiful, and I'll do a video on it. There's beautiful, beautiful women that are of African descent and, very ethnic looking, and it would be really a step out of the royal family to have something like that happen. But this is kind of like they just gave you a little spoon fed, like, we aren't racist. Look, we have a half black woman, half African American woman, half, she's biracial. We are okay. We're not, So I think it's like a baby step to say we're cool, aren't we? We're all right, and be a little bit more relevant, especially since in 2020 there'll be millions and millions of biracial people, and ethnicity is rising, and pure Caucasian, Anglo-Saxon, whatever you want to say, white people are coming down in terms of numbers, especially in the United States. And there's something that happens after when people mix like that. When you have a child, like in Meghan's case, she's having a child with a Caucasian man. And if her child grows up and marries a Caucasian woman, they've initially whited out the black in her legacy. So it becomes more and more diluted, if that's a better word for people to understand, and it is called whiting out. So in essence, is that what they're doing? Is it more devious than we think, and she has no idea, or does she care? So that's just my 2 cents. But yes, this picture, she looks very European. Not that she looks good, because her face is a little distorted. And she's wearing a basic black dress, and it's a nice dress. It's amazing what clothes will do for you, and especially the right undergarments and cosmetics and hair care. It's amazing. And it reminds me a lot of that movie Trading Places, with Eddie Murphy from like the 80s or 90s, when they took a con artist off the streets of LA or New York, whatever, and they turned him into a trader, a rich guy. And the two Anglo-Saxon white males who owned the company, millionaires, placed a dollar bet that they could take their nephew or their associate and make him poor, and take the poor guy who's on the street, the supposedly poor guy, and this devious guy, and he was a con artist, and make him wealthy. And they did it for $1. So it was like a joke. So is this what's going on? Deep. I mean, I know it's diving deep, people. I know. The world is a good place, but it's also very full of devious people. And they're decision makers at an upper echelon. And maybe even Meghan doesn't realize it. And if she does realize it, maybe she's playing her game, her part in the game, because, money talks. And especially if someone wants to be, all about money. But I like how they or she or whomever kind of makes it a little bit European. I mean, sometimes her hands and arms don't match her face skin tone, or her neck and her face don't match. And it's like, makeup is a pretty low scale thing to do to change your looks. There's all kinds of tricks. That's right. The Duchess is crowned Britain's top social climber by Society magazine. Tatler as editors rule she has reached the pinnacle of the greasy pole. And I think that's what has to do with this right here. This particular picture here that was from Tumblr, I believe. But I think this could have been from that site originally, because I may have, clicked on it and gone back to the original, post. So, just basically, she has reached the pinnacle of the greasy pole. And when you have a greasy pole and you're going up, there's nowhere else to go but down. So with that, we know that one